It's mid-season in the garden and everything is starting to show its true colors. Some plants are thriving, others not so much. And now it's the perfect time to take a look at your garden and plan for next year. If you're new here, I'm Mari, chef and gardener in New York, and today we're walking through my garden to see what's thriving, what's struggling, and what lessons are we taking into next season. I had a bit of a slow start in my garden this year because we had a very cold and wet spring, and I also had to build all of this. When we moved in, there was no structure in here for the garden. This was all grass, and we worked really hard to prepare the soil, mulching it to kind of level it up. We also are on a slope, so that was definitely a big challenge. And then we had to build the fence, the beds, fill the beds, plant everything, do the trellis and all of that. So not only the weather slowed us down a bit, also just the act of building the structure, but overall everything's looking really good. But our garden's really just starting to come to its peak right now. When I was in New York City last year, that used to happen for us around July. Now I'm seeing that kind of progress in mid-August. So let's talk about plant growth and development and what I'm seeing right now at this time. We're going to start here in this bed with the tomatoes. I've been harvesting a few here and there, but finally everything is starting to mature a lot faster. So I definitely want to take note for that for next year, because the tomatoes I did plant in what I thought was the right time, since they prefer warmer weather and the spring stayed cool for very long. Actually, when I first planted them, they got stunted for a few weeks because it was still too cold. So I just know that next year I should be expecting a tomato harvest more around August instead of July. My peppers also had a really slow growth, but they're finally starting to catch up. These ones here are not doing as good as the ones that I have in my green stock over there, but overall they're doing good. This basil here is bolting, but I'm doing this on purpose so we can keep attracting more pollinators. My eggplants in here have been really slow. So far, these two plants only produced one eggplant each, but now I'm seeing a lot more flowers, and the bees are working hard into pollinating them as well. So hopefully you start producing a bit more soon. Now let's move on here to this side of the garden. And while everything is doing mostly really well here too, I'm starting to see some problems. On this side of the bed, I am seeing some fungal disease. I don't even want to touch this leaf here right now so I don't spread it through the garden. But I'm thinking all these brown spots in here is something that could have come from the soil. This plant still has a lot of healthy growth. All of these other leaves here growing up that way seem to be doing all right, along with some other new growth over here. So the next step for me would be to try to cut this as much as I can so I can prevent this from spreading too much. This plant though is loaded with fruit. It's producing so many cucumbers. I think it was the highest producing plant for us so far. These long beans over here are another highlight in the garden. I'm loving them right now. I did inoculate these seeds with a rhizobia bacteria in the beginning of the season, and I think that helped with plant production and overall health. So that's also something I want to take a note and keep in mind for next year too. Something that's also doing really well is this butternut squash over here. Look at this, guys. They're so beautiful. It's my first time growing squash successfully, winter squash. This one here, the honey nut squash, it is the best producing squash vine of this year. I have so many little baby squash. I think there's another one there too, and I'm definitely going to be growing at least 2 of them next season. But this plant is starting to show some signs of stress. You can see there's some yellowing leaves here. Some of these ones are losing color and looking like getting some sort of bug damage. So I need to come around here and prune all of these leaves and make sure that if there is some bugs or anything in there, they won't be spreading too much. Coming back to this cucumber here, I gave you guys a close-up. Look at this. These fungal diseases are not something that you want to encourage in your garden, and it's really good to try to keep up, especially now in the mid-season, so this disease don't carry over in your soil or around your garden to the next season. Same here for these tomatoes. These ones in this bed here are doing great, and I've been pruning them heavily to increase airflow and try to help with fungal disease, but the ones that are growing back there in what I'm calling the tomato alley are not doing as good. This area of the garden was looking much better in the garden tour a couple weeks ago, but I had to come here and do a really hard pruning because I started noticing a lot of blight or early blight issues. I can see some right now as well, so I'll bring you guys closer to show you guys in a minute. But it doesn't look as nice and healthy and lush as it looked before. It looks a little bit puny and thinned out, especially the plants that are growing on that side. This one on this side, surprisingly enough, they're getting a little bit more shade, are doing much better than the ones here, which this is the sunniest spot of our garden, this corner over here. We get sun almost all day. Everywhere else in the garden we get spotted sun depending on the angle, because we have lots of trees around the garden too, very tall mature trees. So that makes me think it could also been a watering issue. The plants got stressed and that's why they're getting diseased. But you can see there's lots of fruit in them, and we're going to get these all harvested today. But they have stalled in growth a bit. They're not really getting as tall as these other ones here on this side and the ones in this section. And I'm struggling to figure out what's the best watering system for me, and it's something that I want to pay more attention next year too. I have been torn in between doing the deep watering method or the new, more trendy pulse watering method that a lot of growers are talking about, where they do shallow and frequent watering sessions, so the whole top of the soil stays moist, and that helps with the microorganisms that are living there staying always active, because they do need moisture to keep working well. I am considering installing irrigation, which I have never done and I'm not very familiar with, but I am willing to learn. So hopefully I can have a better garden next season. And I want to rely more heavily in mulching too. When we first moved here, or in the beginning of the season, we bought a used lawnmower that did not have a bag to catch grass clippings. That ended up breaking, and we had to get a brand new one with the bag. And that made such a difference in our garden. I think adding the grass clippings has been really helping with water retention and moisture. And it's always really good to try to keep the soil covered when you can. So mulching is something that I'm going to be relying on a lot more in the garden next year too. So now let's talk about pest and disease management. Here is a close-up of the leaf that I said I was seeing some signs of blight on. That's not really good. I pruned this a few days ago, and everything that was left here was nice and healthy like this, and it means that this disease kind of spreaded fast or kept growing. I tried to be careful, and I sanitized my pruners in between plants to make sure I was not transferring anything, but still sometimes things are still going to happen. I'm seeing some spots on this side as well. So today we're gonna come through here when you're talking about harvesting, and we're gonna harvest all of this, and then we'll see how much more I'll be able to get from these plants this season still. And the major disease I'm seeing in my garden right now are all fungal disease. We did have a very cold and rainy spring. I started this trying to not prune as hard. I wanted to do this to grow big and wild, but as soon as I start seeing those spots on its leaves, I decided to start pruning, and maybe it was a bit too far. Next year, I have to remember that I do live in a very humid climate, and it is more helpful to me if I can start working on this early in the season to prevent something like that to keep happening, or to slow it down as much as I can. For pests, I haven't been dealing with aphids as much, which are a common pest at this time of the year and in the garden in general, in this new garden, which I think maybe it's because it's a brand new garden. We also are in an area that's very wooded, and we're close to a big park, state park, and that also means that we have lots of spiders and other wildlife too. So the spider population in this garden is very healthy, so I think that's helping with controlling the aphids, and maybe we are also successful with attracting some beneficial insects and wasps. I try to always plant lots of flowers together with my vegetables to attract some of these beneficial insects as well. This new section here that I have just added to the garden is brand new, it's going to be for flowers next year. I wanted to build a buffer in between our veggie garden and the woods back there, so the animals don't see it as much and don't try to come here as often. We're having a really big problem with groundhogs, and there's raccoons, chipmunks, sometimes bears. The bears haven't tried to come to our garden yet, but we do see them in the region. And obviously deer. But we have a very tall fence here on this side. In this side, we haven't put a second layer of fencing yet, so I haven't planted many things in here, but that's in the plan or in the works. We would like to do that by next season. Add bamboo poles in here, again, next to those metal poles you're seeing, and then put some bird netting on top so we can grow some more things in here without worrying that the deer will jump and just get into the garden. So these two big in-ground beds here are going to be flowers. I'm going to plant some cold hardy annuals now in the fall to have a very early start. They're going to stay here as baby plants in the soil to overwinter. I'm choosing varieties that can handle that, and then they're going to flower very early next spring. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'd like to start attracting pollinators and beneficial insects very early in the garden. Next year, this year, if you've been watching for a while, you know that in the beginning of the season I had a hard time with pollinators. I was not seeing any bees in my garden. So I want to do that to help me pollinate these crops earlier, to give some forage to them so they can have something to eat early in the season, and also to start sheltering the garden, buffering the garden from the wildlife early on so they don't learn that this veggie garden is here. So we want to take some early action. We are a full organic garden here. I do not use anything, not even the organic approved methods like neem oil or BT or something like that. We are trying to just see if we can find a way to work with nature and attract enough beneficial insects that they can keep the harmful insects to the garden population in check. And since it is mid-August, it is now time to start thinking about growing things like radishes, lettuce, or you can even do, depending on how long you have left in your season, you can even do another quick succession of something that's quick maturing like beans or squash. Some varieties can mature as quickly as 50 to 60 days, but just remember that because of the reduced sunlight at this time of the year, it's good to add 1 to 2 extra weeks to that maturity date as well to ensure that you're still going to get a harvest. So that's something I want to keep in mind in this new garden here too when planting my fall crops for this season. I just had to run inside real quick to grab a basket because it just started pouring, and I definitely need to harvest the tomatoes here, otherwise they're going to split with all of this water. So we're going to shift focus real quick and get this all harvested. I'll start here with these beautiful tomatoes. Those are the sergeant peppers. This is the first time that we're harvesting them. Let's see how many we can get. I usually like to harvest my tomatoes a bit more frequently, and I never leave this many on the vine, but now is the first time that I'm having a lot at once, and some of them even got a bit more farther along than I usually harvest them. I prefer to harvest them earlier just in case they get rain or some animal come in here try to grab them, and that's usually not a problem. They will still ripen well inside and bring on some good flavor. I would just leave them in my counter, in the kitchen counter, to finish ripening, and I'm planning to maybe make some salsa with these ones and probably can my first tomatoes. The big ones I'm going to save for fresh eating because I love putting them in salads and making tomato sandwiches, and I'm also planning to do some cooking with them as well. This is the best time of the year in the garden when the harvests are abundant and we're eating fresh veggies from the garden every day. I always feel so good at this time, even with all the overwhelm sometimes and the business that the August garden can bring. Having homemade meals with homegrown produce really fills my heart. I think I grabbed most of the ones that were blushing. Unfortunately, this one's my split, but it's okay. Oops, never mind, there's some here. Nice and red. I'm just going to harvest the cucumbers because those can get big overnight. Oops. Oh, there's a really big one here. That one got too big. For the long beans, I guess I'll take a couple that are looking like this one so it doesn't develop seed. Like they start getting beans inside and get a little tough. So just real quick, since you're already here, let's just grab the very long ones. This is our quick harvest for right now. Now I'm going to run inside. Now just wait for this rain to stop. Okay, I'm back after the rain, and I think now is a great opportunity to talk about weather patterns and changes that we had this year. It's been definitely an interesting year. I mentioned before here in the video that we had a cool and rainy spring. We did have some rain in the early summer too, but for the past 10 days or so, we're kind of dry, so it was funny that we got rained on right when I was filming the video. But I feel that it's going to be hard moving forward to really know what's going to happen with the weather. And one of the things that is good practice is to have a resilient garden that can adapt to different conditions. I do like to start planting some more drought tolerant things, especially in the front yard where I didn't really have much success with it this year. I tried to make some no-dig beds in there, and that was definitely my biggest failure of the year. I started them last fall when we moved in, trying to be prepared and think ahead, and they still didn't work. We're gonna take a walk out there in a minute so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. But especially in places that it's not that easy for me to get water, I would like to try to work in planting more things that are more adapted to our local climate here and can be a bit more resilient with all of the weather changes. We do have a pond, and we thought about putting irrigation eventually from the pond into the front beds that we built over there. But the pond is drying out right now again. Last year when we moved in, we were on a drought. We moved in September and the pond was kind of low. We were in drought conditions until October, so not sure if it's really reliable to count on irrigation from the pond now in the summer when it's the dry season. And also I really need to focus on improving the soil and on soil health everywhere in the garden, but especially there in the front where I am not there all the time. And I tried to get into composting this year, making my own compost, but I did not follow through very well. For some reason I have been having a hard time doing that and just getting really into composting more diligently. That's something I like to get better to next year too, because I don't want to be bringing in a lot of things for this garden. My main goal would be to be able to use things in this property to make our compost, to feed the soil, to have our own mulch and everything like that. So we can take a walk to the front right now. I will show you how the no-dig beds are doing and what I'm planning to do to prep it for the fall and the winter. So here are my no-dig beds by the pond. You can barely see them at this point. They have been taken by the weeds over here. They have been really hard to manage. Nothing really grew in them. Now they look wet because we just had rain, but usually the soil looks very dry and gray over here too. I tried to sow a cover crop of buckwheat, but it didn't really grow. The weeds still took over, and the grass, I should say, and sort of dominated the beds here and there. And here too, on this bed over here, I did try to weed, and you can see a lot more soil on this one than you can see in the other ones. But it was so much work. I don't know if I have the energy to weed these other beds here too. I had tried to put all my dahlia tubers in here. Actually, let me go back for a minute. Before I did the dahlia tubers, I tried to plant my native flowers in here this year, the ones that I started in the milk jugs in the winter, and the groundhogs ate them all. And then I decided to just put my dahlia tubers in here, I think maybe in the beginning of June, because they had to be planted and I didn't have another space to put them. So I just put them in here to kind of sacrifice them. And most of them did get eaten. But these guys here, at least one plant, pushed through and it was growing, so I put it a little bit of a shelter in here after I weeded this whole bed. This bed here, I had the snapdragons early in the season and they are growing fine. They didn't get eaten by the groundhogs, so I learned that I can plant that here, and they were fine with no watering. I feel bad taking all of this down and just tarping it or even tilling this area, which I don't want to do. So I have been having a hard time deciding what the next move would be moving forward. I do know that I did make a mistake with these no-dig beds in the beginning. I had mixed information that I have read on the internet. Some gardeners, especially the UK growers, say that I needed to put a lot more compost on top of them, about 6 inches of compost. And then I heard from some farmers here in the US that that's way too much compost and it's not that great, so you should put maximum 2-inch layer. That's what I tried to do, also because, you know, we have to bring in compost and I didn't have as much to spare, so I decided to go with the advice to not add so much, but that just didn't really work. A bunch of weed seeds got into it over the winter. I tried to cover them with fall leaves. If you've been watching for a while, you watched this whole journey since last year when we moved in, and the leaves just got blown away. I also have learned that we have a lot of wind, strong wind here in the winter, so mulching with something that light didn't really work for us. I have to find another way to do it this fall. And also they're very difficult to cultivate. I think because the layer was thin, the cardboard got broken down, the grass grew to it anyway. I mean, that one in the middle, you can barely see the bed. It looks like it's all grass right now, it's just mowed over. But when I tried to put the buckwheat crop in here, we're going to walk over a little closer. They just didn't do good. They're trying to flower already, and they're very, very puny. I put lots and lots of seed down, but I think the birds ate most of it too. And then the grass just kind of won over. Here is some grass and buckwheat all together. The ones with the yellow leaves are buckwheat. So buckwheat's supposed to be a good cover crop that is drought tolerant, but definitely not thriving here on these conditions. They're not growing well, which makes me think our soil is not very good and makes me want to just put another layer of compost. I have to figure out how to get rid of this grass. I am not putting any more cardboard down. I don't think that was a good idea too. It doesn't look the greatest, and so I would probably, if I could, tarp it. You see those tarps over here? I like to tarp this and just smother the grass, and then maybe put another layer of compost if you can bring some compost in, but unfortunately it's costly, and I wish I could find a free resource around me here. And then if I was able to put compost, I would then do a fall and winter cover crop, which I might still try. I might still try to do some cover crops I tried last year and didn't really work because I sowed over the grass, but this time I'm going to try to kill the grass in the beds and then add the cover crop seeds that I already have from last year. I have some winter rye, some tiller radish, some buckwheat. No, I use all the buckwheat, and that's a summer cover crop, not a cold hardy. And I think I had field peas, so I'll just sow a mixture in them and try again and see if we could do that to increase our soil health and fertility, because I think that should be my main goal for here. Obviously I wanted flowers. I wanted to do some cool flowers in here too for the spring, because I'd love to bring some color to this whole area by the pond here. There's some goldenrod blooming right now, but there's not a lot of flowers in here. It's mostly grass that grows by the pond too, so that might have to wait. I might have to go with doing a winter cover crop, enriching the soil for a little bit, working on soil health first, and then maybe I can do some summer flowers that are resistant to groundhogs, because we know we also have a really strong groundhog pressure here. And because we have the pond, a lot of the wildlife comes here too to drink water, which we think is great, and we love having this resource for the wildlife, but the groundhogs love staying around here, and they've just been eating almost everything that I planted here, other than the foxglove, because you can see some things are still growing. Those little bushy things are foxgloves, and the dahlia that's protected, and some snapdragons and scabiosa. So I'm still researching and trying things out to see what I can plant here to deter them, but soil health should be my first priority. And if you're new, I'm just going to show you how our front yard looks like. Our pond is quite big. I have made a little bed over there too. That's not doing great, and I have a lot of grass over here. So we're trying to make this area of the garden pretty. We love spending time out here. That's a really big area behind the pond there too. We're not going to address it this year, but eventually I'd like to do something there too. But the pond now is drying again. I'm not sure if you can really see it on camera, but the water level is low. You can see some dirt in the bottom over there, and that purple thing over there that you see is actually purple loosestrife. It's highly invasive, So if we could, it would be nice for us to remove it, that one over there. There's also a lot of multiflora rose growing here and some autumn olive. So if we could clear out the invasives and make some space for some native seeds to thrive, that would be great too. We love the goldenrod that's in here, and there's some asters. My first idea was to plant lots of asters around here and lots of native plants, Rudbeckia and Echinacea, but unfortunately the groundhogs had other plans for us. So we keep learning and seeing what's going to be the best course of action for us to improve this area. It's so beautiful. I would really love to have this area taken care of and looking nicer. I also feel this will be a beautiful place to have some garden to table dinners once we have our veggies from the garden and set a table over here with all the flowers, and when I'm able to plant flowers here. Hopefully next year we'll have a completely new setup. If you have any tips for me, anything you want to share, I would love to hear them in the comment section down below. And I would also love to know what are the lessons that you are taking from your garden into next year too. If you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it as a small YouTuber trying to grow on YouTube this year. Your help really counts. And feel free to share this video with a friend too if you think they're also going to like it. I'll also link a couple of videos right here that you can watch next. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.